Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now today's session might look small on paper, just one function called normalize-space, but I want to be very honest with you. This function solves one of the most common and frustrating problems in Selenium automation. Okay, so the problem is the text that looks correct to humans but breaks the automation script. Okay, so the text contains extra spaces, new lines, indentation, invisible characters. Okay, so let's say for example you see the login page on this web page, right? So if you inspect it, okay, and you see there is a enclosed text here, that is login. But if you see the login text here, there are some spaces on the left side as well as at the right side, right? But on the button you see it's correct, right? So these are such text which looks correct to us but breaks automation script. Okay, and if you use the text function to locate this particular login button using this exact visible text, your Selenium will say element not found. Okay, so if that has ever happened to you, this session is going to save you hours of debugging. So today we will deeply understand what normalized space really does, why text-based XPath fails without it, how to use normalized space with equals, how to use it with contains, and finally we will see some other XPath methods. So slow down, focus, and let's begin. Okay, so let me explain the problem first before we touch any syntax. When developers build web pages, they generally format HTML for greater readability. Okay, so that means they add some line breaks, some horizontal lines, some extra spaces, some indentation. Okay, so for example, this case, this button. So if you simply double click on this, you will see the login text has some space, extra spaces within, right? So to your eyes it still say login on the button, but if you go inside the HTML you see there are extra spaces. Okay, so let's try to inspect it one more time and then we'll see there is a login here. Okay, now if we simply write the XPath using text function to locate this login element, and the exact match will be the login, it will say element not found. Okay, so let's give it a try. I will simply copy this button here, Control F, then button, and then you can simply use text function. Now you should be aware about how we can write text function. We have already covered it in our like previous lectures. If you have not watched those, you can go back and then you can like go through those lectures, okay, on text functions. Okay, so text function, and then you can simply copy paste, and then even if you give the spaces here it will not work, or if you remove the spaces, okay, okay, and then you see there is one element found but it's not this one. So if you just enter it, this button will not get highlighted and there is another button on this page. Okay, but again that is still hidden as of now, but if you click on this login button then that will get enabled. Okay, but for our case it's still not able to locate. Okay, so if you again see, this is our login button. Okay, you see if you hover over it and if you just enter after it, it's highlighting the other button. Okay, so that means text function is not working in this case. Okay, and because those has extra spaces or some new line characters. Okay, so this is not a Selenium bug. Okay, keep in mind this is not a Selenium bug. This is not XPath being weak. Okay, this is simply how HTML and the text node works. Okay, similarly if you go to the subscribe button here, okay, and then you will see something similar. Okay, again for this there is a button tag, and if you try to search with this particular element, again if you use the text function I can simply reuse this, and if we simply use this we are not able to locate this also, right? Even if we add the spaces, anything, we are not able to locate it with the help of text function. Okay, so if you copy this again, let's copy this, and then you will see some extra spaces here. Okay, you see there are some extra spaces which are getting added. So basically the actual HTML code will be like something like here. There is a new line got added. Okay, and then subscribe the quality analyst, and again there is a new line here, and then this one. Okay, so this is basically like this. Okay, but yeah, again if you try to copy paste this, this will not work. Okay, so that's why we have the new hero, that is normalize space function. So normalize space does these three things. First, it will remove all the leading spaces. So whatever the leading spaces are there for the enclosed text, those will get removed. Second thing is it removes the trailing spaces. Again, all the spaces at the end of the enclosed text will get removed. And the third thing is it converts multiple spaces inside the text into a single space. Okay, and the fourth is it ignores new lines. So these new lines will be simply ignored. Okay, so in our case, like the subscribe to quality analyst will become simply this. Okay, and then you can simply add it. Okay, and for our login button, like it was like space login and then space, it will become simply like login and without any spaces. That's why normalize space is so powerful. It cleans the text before comparison. Okay, so let's now talk about the most common and safest uses. So instead of writing the text function which we saw right now, we can simply replace this text function with the help of normalize space function. So I will add normalize and then hyphen and space, and then you see straight away it's highlighting the button, subscribe the quality analyst button, right? You see it's highlighting the button. Okay, similarly if you want to do it for login function, login button, you can do that. Okay, just go and log in. But now again in this case we have multiple buttons, multiple login buttons again, so that in that case we will see multiple occurrences. Now we are seeing 3 occurrences. Okay, so out of that we need first occurrence. So simply what we can do is we can index this particular XPath, then in that case it will always return the indexed element. So you see if you add the first index, we are able to locate the first element here. Again as per last tutorial which we have discussed about last function, we can simply add last here. It will give you the last login button or the element. Okay, so this XPath does not care about new lines, tabs, extra spaces, or any kind of formatting. As long as the visible text is login, your XPath will work. So this is the industry grade XPath. So let's say for example, let's make it even more flexible. So sometimes the button text is not exactly static. Okay, so let's say for example this login button, right? If you talk about the login button, okay, even if you talk about the login button, we will talk about the first login again. So I will index this. Okay, so for example this login button, it has changed to login now. Okay, or someone has changed to login here, or after it has changed to login to continue. Okay, so in such cases the exact matching may not be ideal. Okay, so this is where we combine normalize space with continue, sorry, the contains, not continue, the contains. Okay, again the contains function comes into picture here. So similar to the text function, like we can enclose the text function inside contains. Similarly we can do normalize space inside contains. Okay, so let's do that. So here double slash again button, again the relative path, all the steps will remain the same. So instead we will just add this contains function, and whatever we have written outside this curly braces, that is inside the square bracket, we can add it inside these curly braces. Okay, so the brackets, simple brackets. Okay, so here we can add normalize space. Okay, and then we can simply add login again. Sorry, button, and then add a contains function, and inside contains function we will write normalize space. Okay, and then comma. So again, as it is a function, you should add these brackets and then comma, and then we can add login. Okay, and now you will see again we have three occurrences. But yeah, like if you want to index this, you can simply do that by enclosing this XPath inside these brackets, and then you can index it with the help of numbers here. So again, based on the position, you can simply use this indexing. Okay, so find a button where the clean text contains the word login. So this is how it sounds. Okay, so this combination is extremely powerful for dynamic UI applications. So now let me warn you about a few mistakes. So the first mistake, using normalized space everywhere blindly. Okay, normalized space is powerful, but if your element has a stable ID or name, always prefer those instead of using normalized space. Second mistake, forgetting the parenthesis. So again, as the normalized space is a function, we should be adding this parenthesis. Okay, we should not forget this. So if you simply remove this, your XPath will not work. Okay, so that's why we should be adding this parenthesis. Okay, then the third mistake is using normalized space on attributes unnecessarily. So normalized space is mainly useful for text nodes and not the attributes. Okay, so like this is the visible text. So if you want to get the clean text of the visible text, definitely we can go with the normalized space, but this is not applicable to attributes. Okay, so here is a simple thumb rule I follow in real projects. So if text based XPath fails unexpectedly, normalized space is usually the fix. Okay, so as we have seen, text function wasn't working for subscribe the quality analyst button as well as the login button. We have gone with the normalized space. If a tester says it works sometimes and fails sometimes, there are invisible spaces involved. So in that case also we can go with the normalized space. So normalized space is not an optional knowledge, it is a professional XPath hygiene. Okay, so definitely we should be knowing it very well. Okay, so that's it. So let's wrap this up. A normalized space cleans the text, it makes XPath stable, it removes formatting the noise, and it saves you from flaky test. So if you understand this function, you are already ahead of many automation testers. If this session helped you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone struggling with XPath failures. Okay, so in the next tutorial, we will move into XPath access, ancestor, descendant, parent, and sibling. Okay, and that's where XPath truly becomes unstoppable. So see you in the next class.